I took the night shift job at the hotel a little over a year ago. It wasn't some giant luxury chain, and it wasn't a rundown roadside motel either. Just a quiet four-star hotel downtown. Clean lobby, soft lighting, long carpeted hallways that all looked exactly the same. I needed something calm. I had classes during the day, and the night shift felt perfect. Fewer guests, less stress, more silence. On my first week, the manager walked me through everything: the booking system, the camera monitors, the emergency procedures. Right before leaving me alone for my first overnight shift, he paused and said something strange. "If a guest complains about noise from room 614, just apologize and move them. Don't go up there at night." I laughed a little. "Why?" "Renovation," he said quickly. That was it. No explanation. The first 2 weeks were uneventful. Late check-ins, drunk guests forgetting their keycards, the occasional request for extra pillows. Then, around 2:40 a.m., the phone rang. A man from room 512 sounded irritated. "Yeah, hi. Someone's pacing around in the room above us. It's been going on for 20 minutes. I checked the system. The room above him was 614. I remembered the warning. "Very sorry, sir. I'll move you to another room immediately." He sounded confused. "Why don't you just tell them to stop?" "I'll relocate you," I repeated. He agreed, still annoyed. After transferring him, I stared at the screen for a long moment. Room 614 was marked as out of order. No active guest. 3 nights later, it happened again. Different guest. Same complaint. This time, they said they could hear water running, like someone had been in the shower for over an hour. I checked the building's water usage system. No water activity registered in 614. At 3 a.m., the elevator moved on its own. I was alone in the lobby. No one had pressed the button. The floor display changed slowly. 4, 5, 6. The doors opened, then closed. A few seconds later, the front desk phone rang. I hesitated before picking up. A woman's voice answered. When I did, "Could I get fresh towels in 614? My throat went dry. "I'm sorry, which room?" A pause. 614. I stared at the monitor. The room had been out of service for 5 years. "I'll bring them up," I heard myself say. I grabbed 2 towels from the back room and took the elevator. The 6th floor was always quieter than the others. The lights seemed dimmer, the air slightly colder. Room 614 was at the very end of the hallway. The door was slightly open. Light spilled out into the corridor. I knocked gently. "Front desk." No answer. I pushed the door open a little wider. The room looked occupied. An open suitcase on the bed, women's clothes folded neatly beside it, a bedside lamp turned on. From inside the bathroom, I could hear the shower running. "I brought the towels," I called out. The water kept running. I stepped inside. The air felt heavy. Then, suddenly, the water shut off. Silence. Complete silence. I froze. Slowly, I walked toward the bathroom doorway. The mirror above the sink faced outward. And in that mirror, I saw her. She was standing directly behind me, a woman in her early 30s, pale skin, wet hair hanging over her shoulders, but she wasn't looking at me. She was staring through me. I spun around. There was no one there. The bathroom was empty. I turned back to the mirror. Now, it showed only me, alone. I backed out of the room immediately. The hallway felt longer than before. My footsteps sounded louder, even through the thick carpet. When I reached the elevator, it took far too long to arrive. Back in the lobby, the phone was ringing again. I didn't want to answer it, but I did. The same woman's voice. "You forgot to close the door." The line went dead. I checked the cameras. The 6th floor hallway appeared on screen. Room 614. The door was closed. The next morning, I told the manager everything. He didn't interrupt me. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. A long-term guest stayed in 614 years ago, he said. She died there. Bathroom accident. That's all we were told. Then why not permanently seal the room? I asked. He gave me a look I still can't explain. We tried. I submitted my resignation that day. On my final night, I promised myself I wouldn't look at the sixth-floor cameras. Around 3 a.m., the elevator moved again, up to 6. And the phone rang. I let it ring. When my replacement arrived in the morning, he frowned at me. Why are there towels lying in the hallway on the 6th floor? My stomach dropped. I hadn't gone back up there. I never answered him. I don't work in hotels anymore. But sometimes, when I travel and check into one late at night, I always look at the emergency evacuation map on the back of the door. And if I see a room 614, I ask for a different floor every time. I didn't experience this one myself. It was told to me by a former coworker during my training week at a hotel I briefly worked at 2 years ago. He had been there for almost 8 years, mostly night shifts. We were sitting in the back office around 2 a.m. It was quiet, nothing happening, just the low hum of the security monitors. He asked me a strange question. Have you ever had someone check in and never check out? I assumed he meant someone leaving early without notice. He shook his head. No, I mean never. Then he told me about the man in room 312. According to him, the man arrived late one night in early November. No luggage, no car in the parking garage. Paid cash for a full week. He didn't make small talk, nor didn't smile. Just stood there while the keycards were being programmed. When asked for an ID, he handed it over without hesitation. Everything seemed normal. He was assigned room 312. The first odd thing happened the next morning. Housekeeping reported that the "Do Not Disturb" sign was hanging on the door. That wasn't unusual, but it stayed there, day after day. No housekeeping, no fresh towels requested, no room service orders. Yet the system showed the keycard being used every night, around 2:10 a.m., always 2:10. He would leave the room and return exactly 14 minutes later, every night. My coworker started noticing him on the security cameras. The man would step into the hallway at 2:10 a.m., stand still for a moment, then slowly walk down the corridor. But he didn't walk toward the elevator. He walked toward room 317. Room 317 was vacant. Every night, the man would stop in front of 317. He stood there, just staring at it. After exactly 14 minutes, he would turn around and walk back into 312. The routine never changed. On the fourth night, my coworker decided to check the hallway camera live instead of replaying it later. At 2:10 a.m., the man stepped out again. Same slow pace, same blank expression. He stopped at 317. But this time, something was different. The door to 317 was slightly open, just a crack. My coworker swore it had been fully closed during his last round. The man stood there, facing the opening. Then, very slowly, he leaned closer as if listening to something inside. Then he straightened up and walked back to 312. Exactly 14 minutes. By the 7th day, his prepaid stay had ended. He hadn't extended. He hadn't checked out. At noon, management instructed my coworker to perform a welfare check. He knocked on 312. No answer. He knocked again. Nothing. He used the master key. The room was empty. The bed was perfectly made. The bathroom was dry, unused. The air felt stale, like no one had been there at all. But the keycard logs clearly showed nightly activity. Every single night at 2:10 a.m. Here's where it gets worse. As my coworker stood inside 312, his radio crackled. The front desk clerk asked him, "Are you checking room 317 right now?" He froze. "No, why?" There was a pause. Because someone is standing outside 317. He felt the temperature drop instantly. Slowly, he stepped into the hallway. Room 317 was halfway down the corridor, and there he was, the man, standing exactly where he had stood every night. Facing the door, my coworker said he didn't blink. The hallway was silent. Then, slowly, very slowly, the man turned his head, not toward 317, toward the security camera mounted near the ceiling, as if he knew exactly where it was. As if he knew he was being watched. The front desk clerk later confirmed something chilling. The camera footage showed the man standing there in real time, but the timestamp was glitching. Instead of showing the current hour, it flickered between 2:10 a.m. and the present time, back and forth, over and over, like the system couldn't decide when he was supposed to exist. Security was called, but by the time they reached the third floor, the hallway was empty. Room 312 remained vacant. Room 317 was locked. No signs of forced entry. No record of the man leaving the building. The cash payment had been legitimate. The ID matched a real person. But that person had been declared deceased 3 years earlier. My coworker transferred to day shifts soon after. He told me something else before he quit entirely. Sometimes, during quiet nights, he would open the archived footage just to check. And every once in a while, on random dates long after the incident at 2:10 a.m., the camera facing room 317 would briefly flicker for a single frame. And in that frame, a man would be standing there, looking directly at the camera. I asked him why the hotel never reported it publicly. He just shrugged. Because technically, he said, no one ever checked in. I didn't stay at that job long either, and I've never booked a room ending in 12 or 17 since, just in case. This one happened to someone I actually knew. Her name was Alina. We weren't best friends, but we worked together briefly before she took a night cleaning job at a large business hotel near the highway. It was the kind of place that hosted conferences during the day and felt almost empty after midnight. She liked night shifts, said they paid better and there were fewer people to deal with. The hotel had 8 public floors, but there was a 9th floor. Officially, it was closed for renovation. Unofficially, it wasn't supposed to exist. Alina told me about it over coffee one afternoon. At first, she laughed while explaining it. Sometimes the service elevator stops at 9, she said, even when no one presses it. I assumed it was just a mechanical glitch. She said management told them never to exit on 9 if it happened. Just press another floor and keep going, they'd say. Most employees ignored it until one night she didn't. Her shift usually started at 11:30 p.m. Vacuuming hallways, replacing towels in vacant rooms, cleaning conference spaces. Around 2:15 a.m., she was alone in the service elevator with her cart. The doors closed. She pressed floor 6. The elevator moved, but instead of stopping at 6, it continued upward. 7, 8, and then the doors opened. The hallway lights were on. The carpet looked newer than the other floors, dark blue with a gold pattern. The air smelled faintly like perfume. She told herself she would just step out for a second, just to prove there was nothing strange. The hallway was long and quiet. All the room numbers began with 9. Every door was closed. But as she rolled her cart forward, she noticed something odd. There were no dust layers. No signs of renovation. It looked ready for guests. At the end of the corridor stood a housekeeping cart, identical to hers. She assumed someone from day shift had left it there by mistake. When she got closer, she realized something else. The cart was clean, no cleaning supplies, just folded towels stacked neatly on top and hanging from the handle, a name tag. She told me her hands started shaking when she read it. It said, Alina. She laughed when she told me that part, but it wasn't a normal laugh. It was forced. I thought maybe someone was playing a joke, she said. So she looked around. The hallway felt longer than before. Then she heard it, a door closing behind her. She turned around. Every door was still closed, except one, room 913. The door was slightly open. Light spilled into the hallway, like someone was inside. She told me she didn't know why. She walked toward it. Inside 913, the room looked occupied. The bed had been slept in. The bathroom light was on. Steam clung to the mirror, and on the bed was her cleaning uniform. But not the one she was wearing. Another one, with her name stitched into the collar. Then she heard something behind her, a voice, soft, calm. "You're late." She turned. A woman stood near the bathroom doorway, wearing a housekeeping uniform. But it wasn't modern. It looked older. The woman's hair was wet. "You're covering my shift," the woman said. Alina told me she couldn't move. The woman smiled faintly. "You work here now." The next thing she remembered clearly was waking up in the staff break room on the 8th floor. Her coworkers said they found her sitting in a chair near the service elevator at 4 a.m. Her cart was beside her. She wasn't responding. They assumed she fainted from exhaustion. But when security checked the service elevator logs, it never stopped at 9. According to the system, floor 9 wasn't accessible. She quit 2 weeks later. But before she left, she told me one last thing. On her final shift, around 2:15 a.m., the service elevator doors opened on their own. On floor 8, no one inside. But there was a housekeeping cart in the middle of the elevator, identical to hers, and hanging from the handle, a name tag. Not hers this time, just a blank one, waiting. The hotel still operates. 8 floors, no 9th. But sometimes, guests complain about noises above them late at night, and management always says the same thing. There is no floor above you. Alina refuses to enter hotels now. She says she feels watched in long hallways, like someone is waiting for her to clock in again.